Hey there. Sorry, everyone. I got just some technical issues. Anyways, we're back, and hopefully you can hear us. Please confirm that you can see. Oh, okay, fantastic. Sorry about that, and Ivar will take over. Ivar, please.
Thank you. Can anybody tell me how far did we get? Did I start with the slides or slide number 1 or 2?
Let's start with 1.
I'll start sort of at the beginning. The microphone 302 slide. Oh, cool. So I'll go there. So let me see. I'll just share my screen again. Share. There you go. So we were, I guess, here. So I hope I'll just go through the. I think if I said that I was going to demo most of them, I think I went through and explained what they're doing. Otherwise, the demo will show it pretty good. So these are the APIs that MicroProfile consists of. They are based on the 4 core APIs from Jakarta EE, which is CDI, JSONP, JAX4S, and JSONP. And on top of this, there are these cloud-native APIs that are useful for creating microservices. And I'll go through each of these in detail when we get to the demo. So, and we have a set of APIs, which is MicroProfile. And MicroProfile is then implemented by implementations. So, and different vendors have different implementations, and we have a lot of them. And Thorntail and Quarkus are examples from Red Hat. We have OpenLiberty and WebStorLiberty from IBM. We have Payara from Payara, Helodon from Oracle, Apache Tommy from Tommy Tribe. And we have a couple of smaller initiatives like Hammock, Cumulus EE, and Launcher. The last one from Fujitsu. And in this talk, I'll use 5 of these to demo with. One of the things that MicroProfile also gives us is the possibility of running our applications from command line using the java-jar and then our fat jar. And this is familiar from people who use Spring Boot or other fat jar or uber-jar packaging mechanisms. And today there are several options to package or build your Docker images in an efficient way based on how the jar files are packaged. Either they're using the hollow jar approach or the thin jar approach or just a fat jar approach, and you have some tooling like Jib or something that just unwraps it and build your Docker images in an efficient way. So all the samples I'll be running today is just from command line using java-jar. So the best place to get started with Eclipse MicroProfile is microprofile.io. Here, it's a little old, this page, since it's the latest version is version 3.2. But this is where you can find all the information about the projects, about the contributors, how you can involve in the projects, and how you can get started with using MicroProfile. And to get started, the best way is to use the starter. And I'll download the starter here right now. So, but first I'll just show which applications I plan on building today. This is a set of 5 different microservices, and this application here is meant for helping myself when I'm out at conferences speaking, because sometimes you arrive at the hotel pretty late and you just go to bed, and when you wake up the next morning you have no idea where you are or what you're doing there. So this is kind of a helper service to figure out, so I can start these services with my laptop, and when I get up out of bed in the morning, I just hit refresh and I know what I'm going to do. So to help with this, of course, I created microservices. And I have one microservice, which is called the location service, which I'll build on Thorntail, which will tell me where I am. So for this talk, for example, the response should be the internet. That's where I'm doing this talk. but it could be in a city somewhere. So I just have to configure the service with the location of where I am before I go to bed. Hopefully I'll know where I am then. Then I'll have a conference service, which I'll build on Helidon, which will tell me which conference am I going to speak at. So this one the conference service will use the location. So you're probably familiar with the DevOps conferences. They're everywhere. So it's a good thing to suffix the name with the location. So we have like DevOps Morocco, or DevOps Belgium, or DevOps Ukraine, or DevOps all of them. So the conference service will use the location service to build up the name of the conference. And also I'll use a time service to just give me I see I've switched the responses here, but the time service will give the time of my talk, and the day service will give me which day I'm doing this talk. So when I hit the greeting service, which will be running on OpenLiberty, it will tell me that I have a Jakarta Tech Talk on the internet Wednesday at 5 p.m. So we'll kind of use the other services to do this. So let's get started with this. And in order to do this, I'll use the starter. So when you click on the starter, this is how it looks like. And it is very similar to the Spring Boot initializer. So if I get started here and say, I want to create a location service, then the next thing I have to choose here is which version of MicroProfile am I using. And as you see, when I choose a version of MicroProfile, I'll get options of which implementation I want to use. In this case, it's Thorntail. And this is actually all you have to do. So in the Spring Boot environment, if you're used to that, you have to pick and choose wherever technologies you're using. Like if I'm doing a REST endpoint, you have to pick the REST stuff. If you're doing some data stuff, you have to pick the data stuff. Here you have everything. It's there for you. So whatever you pick here is just sample code. So you can see how it's used, but you don't have to pick it. Everything is there configured for you. And that's kind of the way that the Java EE, Jakarta EE world is thinking, and how the MicroProfile is also doing that, is that you have everything. It's provided for you by an implementation. So you don't have to build your application server your own. It's there for you. So once I've done this, I just click download. And as you remember, this was only the local service. So I'll also create a conference service, which I'll run on Helidon. And I'll use a greeting service, which I'll run on OpenLiberty. And then I'll have the time service, which I'll run on Payara, but unfortunately they don't support the 3.0 yet, or at least not in the starter. So I'll just do that too. And then also need a day service, which I'll run on Apache Tommy, which is on version 2.01. So here I've downloaded all these zip files, and what I can do then is just unzip them here. But rather than doing that, I've kind of cheated beforehand, but I'll just unzip one of them. You see, you get a project here with a simple hello service, which will just say hello world. And all of them are the same, and they're configured to run on the server you've picked. So as I said, I just did this before this talk, so I have all of these services here. I have the conference, day, greeting, location, and time. So let's start with the location service and look at it. So as you see, it's just a hello world here, but we would like to configure this so we know where we are. So if I want to do that, I'll just, I think I have, I'll inject a property here, which I'm using the config property annotation from MicroProfile. I'll just go to go to presentation mode here so it's bigger. So you see, I'm using the config property from microprofile config. I'm saying the property has a name called place. It has a default value. If I forget to configure it, I'll just have to look out the window and figure out where I am. And it injects this property into the variable of place. So what I should do here is just return the value of place. So this is all I have to do to get this thing running. So if I want to run this one, I'll go into the location service here. Just kill my screen there. So I'll just name and clean package. And while it's building, let's just look at some of the other applications here. So the greeting service, for example, is also just a hello world, as you see, is generated for us. The greeting service I'll actually run using a pretty neat tooling. This is an Web Liberty implementation. So here I'll use the tooling from IBM that gives me the development mode in my project here. So let's look at the Thorntail is building here, and the greeting is starting. So I'll just go back to the slides here and see. You remember I'm doing the location service here, so this one will return the internet is what I wanted to return, and not hello world or look out the window or something. So when I start it, I have to configure it. So when I go here and I want to start this one, I'll write java-jar, and then I'll use the -d as a system property and give the value of place on internet. So I configure my service with on internet, and then I just point out the jar file that it's built for me and start it. And while we are doing this, what's going on here? Okay, I'll just start this one again. It took some time here. So for some reason, things went very slowly right now. So it is getting, it's my computer here. It's getting very tired, but let's let it go. And while we are at it, we'll go and look at the architecture again. You see that the conference application should be calling the location application and using the internet to produce the text Jakarta tech talk on the internet. So let's go back to this one and see that the Thorntail is getting up and running. And while it's doing that, let's go into the conference one and look at this hello controller. And this one also returns hello world. But what we would have it to return is have it to call the location service. So in order to do that, we have to create a interface called location service. We can call it wherever we want, but location service is as good as any name. And let's annotate this one with some JAX-RS annotations. So let's use the app path, and this is the location. And let's also use some REST client annotation, like the register REST client. So we register this client to be using the MicroProfile REST client API, and then we also want to have the client headers propagated. And in order to be able to inject it, we also annotate with app dependent. And then we need to have a method. And this method is going to be returning a string, and it should be can be called location. And let's oh, it's a interface, so it's no method here. There we go. So we have the string location, and since I started it now, and you know the endpoint is hello, so if I go here and I do HTTP, the location service is running on port 8484, data hello, it should say on internet. So my service is up and running. It's saying that it's on internet. And the location service, let me just it is returning the get method from the hello endpoint. So that use this location service in the hello controller. And the way we use that is that I use inject, and I use the REST client, and I say this is a location service, and then I can return the text that this is a Jakarta tech talk. And then I'll add the location of this one. Location. So this one will return the Jakarta tech talk, and then it will use the location service .location. And you may wonder, how does it know where to call this location service? Because the only thing I've done is to create an interface. Well, it's using MicroProfile configuration, actually. So there is a MicroProfile config property, and here I can use the path, the fully qualified path of the interface I created. Then I add MP REST URL, which is it tells the MicroProfile REST client that this is the URL for this service, and then I gave it the root context of the service, which is 8484/data. And as you saw, when I call it, call this service, it will say on internet. So if I go into the conference application here again, and I say this one should actually be conference. So, and wriggle this one. So what I've done now is to create the location service, which returns the internet, which is configurable. I've created the conference service, which is going to call the location service and give the text Jakarta tech talk, and then on the internet as a text I'm getting from the location service. What I also want to do is to say that what happens if the location service if the location service is not up and running, this one will fail, and that is fine by now. I'll use the circuit breaker otherwise in the application. Otherwise, this is where I could use it. So what I'll do is to start this conference jar. And this one isn't configured with anything since I just hard-coded the text of the conference. So I'll start this one, and this one runs on Helidon, and it's Helidon usually starts pretty quick. So it's up and running, and it is running on 8282. So if I go here, and it should be at 8282 data conference, it should be saying. This is a Jakarta tech talk on the internet. So it's getting the text on the internet from the location service. So far I've connected two services together, the location and the internet. So I'm able to hear from the greeting service call the conference service to get Jakarta tech talk on the internet. The text here. So let's go to the greeting service and look at that one. So this one just says hello world, and for now that is okay. And this one I'll just see if I can. Oh, sorry, type it right. Let's see if it will start up. This one is actually running on Java 13. They run on 8 as well, but this one is on 13, and also the conference service is running on 13. So it's getting up and running. I think it's getting there. So let's see. Yeah, it's up and running. So now I should be able to call this one using port 8181 data hello, and it should say hello world, and it does. What's also interesting here is you get something, some of the other specifications for free. So if I go here and say, rather than saying data hello, let's say health. And you see, I get a health endpoint here. It says my service is up. But this isn't always good enough. So let's add some other health checks, because you always want to have a liveness probe and a readiness probe when you create your applications for the environment to know that your service is alive. So it should allow it to continue running. And when it's ready, so the load balancer knows when it can send traffic to it. So let's create the liveness probe and call it Duke Alive. And the liveness probe is implementing the health check interface, and it has at liveness annotation, and then you create your own version of your liveness probe. And if I now go in and touch the endpoint /live, you should see that it now has Duke is alive. The liveness probe is there, and the same way I can create a readiness probe. So I set up the readiness probe like this, and if I wanted to add more data here, I could do that. Something Jakarta rocks, for example, something like this. And if I go in and touch the readiness probe, it should give me the text that I'm giving, that the Duke is ready and Jakarta rocks. So you see, it's very easy to create your own health checks, and this one has the readiness endpoint. The same way what also comes for free is metrics. So if I go in here and say touch the, rather than health, I can go to the metrics endpoint. It will create a lot of Prometheus data for me. And this is all good. Some of them are vendor specific, and some of them are base metrics, so you can rely on them if you move from vendor to vendor. But what's more interesting is the application specific metrics. So if I go into my Hello controller and say, hey, I want to know how many times this one has been called. So I add the @counted annotation here, and then I go in and hit the endpoint. Let's see, hello. I'll hit it once, twice, 3 times, and then I'll go and see the metrics endpoint, And at the end, you can see that the hello controller has been hit three times. So this is how easy it is to add application-specific metrics. There are other metrics that are more giving more data than just accounted, but this one is pretty demo-friendly. And there is another thing that you get for free from MicroProfile, and that is the documentation part. And as you know, I haven't really touched this code at all, rather than adding the liveness test. But what I get from here is the OpenAPI documentation, or the YAML that describes the API. And this is the sort of thing that Swagger is built on. So if I go to a browser with this, let me see here, localhost 8181 OpenAPI, and you'll see I get the OpenAPI here. What's also interesting is what IBM has given us is the Swagger UI. So you actually have the Swagger UI here and can go and try out your application directly here without actually having written anything or done anything about documentation at all. So that's super convenient. So I showed you some of the stuff with the MicroProfile. Now let's see that we want to call the conference service that we know are up and running, saying Jakarta e-tech on the internet. So the same way as we did with when we called the location service, we created an interface and we call it conference service, like this. We give it a path of conference. We register it as a REST client, and we register the client headers. We give it a dependent CDI scope. We say that this is a get method, and it returns a string parents there. But what we also want to do here is to say that we want to give this a timeout. Say that if it times out, we want something else to happen. And let's set the timeout to 500 milliseconds. And what we also want to do is to provide a fallback mechanism. So if this conference service doesn't answer, let's have a fallback, and let's do a fallback method that we call something. And let's implement this fallback method here. It returns a string, something, and let return something scheduled, like this. So unless, in case the conference service doesn't answer, we can have a fallback that returns something scheduled. Like this. And if we look at the architecture here, you see that now we're doing this call here from the greeting service to the conference service, and we have a fallback mechanism if the conference service is not running. So what we also need to do is to go into the MicroProfile config, config properties, and see that we have the conference service configured and is running on 8282 as we checked here. That is running. So we also need to create the timer service and the day service. And to speed that up a little, I think I created a live template for that. Or did I? I don't think I did. Okay, let's just type it. So I'm creating an interface for this one called the time service. So this one, as the others, have the app path, and it's called time, and register REST client, getting familiar now, and dependent like this. We have an get, and we have it's a string now time like this. And let's give it a fallback, this one as well, and say that fallback method equals now, and the default string now is a return. Let's just return question mark since we don't know what it is. So in this case, it will call the time endpoint, which is configured here, running on 8383. We'll look at this service in a second. And also we need to call the day service. So we'll do the same thing there. Create an input called day service. There we go. So we have at path day like this. Register with the REST client. Register the client headers. Say that it is dependent. And it's get. And this is string day like this. And we should have a fallback here as well. Fallback, and the fallback method should be today. And the fallback method, you don't have to implement it in the interface, but for these simple things, it's just convenient. Like this, return today. So now we have all the services set up. And let's go in here and say, I think I had a, for this one, like this. So what we'll do here is inject the REST client for conference service. And we'll inject the REST client for day service, and inject the REST client for time service. So what we've done now is inject endpoints for, we created the REST client for all these services, and we've configured them here that these are running on 82, 83, and 8080. We have checked that the location service is up and running, the conference service is up and running, and if we call the conference service, that was on 84, no, 82 conference. It returns data, sorry, data conference. It returns Jakarta e-tech on the internet. So, and we've created the hello controller calling all these other services. These other services has fallback methods. So let's try and not have compilation errors. So we have the day service, which has a fallback, and we have time service that has a fallback, and the greeting service is calling all these three on this. So let's see what happens if we call the greeting service now. So then we need to call the Open Liberty one, which is on port 8181 data hello. So it says hello world. That was kind of what not expected. Let me see if I can do this. So it's probably because of the compilation errors. So let's call it again. And it's saying you have a Jakarta tech talk on internet today at some time, because the day service and the time service is not up and running yet, and you saw the fallback hitting. So what's happening here is that the greeting service is calling the conference service, which is calling the location service. Then it calls the time service and the day service, but these are not running, so it gets a fallback. And so it doesn't know which day it is, but it assumes it is today. And it doesn't know which time it is, so you have to check the conference schedule. Let's implement these day and time service so we can get everything up and running. So if we start with the day service, this one just returns hello world. So let's use the day endpoint and return the local date of today, and just get the day of the week. Use a English version of it. So today's Wednesday, so this one should print out Wednesday. And then let's compile this one. And while it's compiling, let's look at the time service. And this one is also exactly the same as it would be when you download it from the starter. So let's change the endpoint to time, and this one should return the current time. So the current time, or not the current time, it says that it's going to use the local time of 5 p.m. Just write it as hours colon minutes. So we've implemented the services. Let's just compile it. Go back here and start the day service. This is running on Tommy, and the time service is running on Pyara. Let's look at this. It's getting up and running, and this one is compiling still. So it's there. So the Tommy service is almost up and running. So this one should be on 8080 data day. We call this one. We see that it says Wednesday. That's all good. Let's look at the time service, and it's built. So let's go and start it. And I'll give this port 8383. So it is the same as we have in the architecture. This one is running on 8383. This one is on 8080. I have to update these slides. Sorry about that, but it was a little bit busy this afternoon. So you see that the time service, day service returns Wednesday, and that the time service is going to return 5 p.m. So it's starting up here. So if I go and prepare, it should say on 83 data time. If it's up and running, it should be, and it's not there yet. It's getting there. So it's up and ready. So if I hit it now, it says 5 p.m. So let's now look at when the services are up and running here now. It will be interesting to see if the greeting service now is correct. So if I hit the endpoint with 8181 and say data hello, it should say you have a Jakarta tech talk on internet Wednesday at 5 p.m. So here we have everything, and we're pretty safe. But there is one thing which is important with microservices, and that is security. And particularly about whereabouts you are. So what I want to do is I want to have the location service secured, so that I'm not returning my location unless I have something proving that I'm allowed to do it. And what I want to do is to have a JSON Web Token on the greeting request, which is going to be propagated to the conference, but it's not going to be used there because I'm fine with just showing which conference I'm at, and it's going to be sent to the location service where it's going to be evaluated and see if I have access to giving out the location, and then return the proper response. So it's only going to be used in the Thornton application, but it's going to propagate through it. This is the JSON Web Token propagation. So what I'm going to do is go into my location service there. I'm going to go and in the hello controller, I'm going to add a roles allowed and call that role protected. So I'm using the Java EE or Jakarta EE security roles allowed annotation. And what I've also done is previously here is that I've declared a role in the Jakarta application, and also said that the authentication method is the MicroProfile JSON Web Token. And I declared there's one role and it's protected. And so I'll just start building this one. So that is all I do. I configure this one. It's also configured with the proper public key, so it's possible to evaluate the signature of the JSON Web Token. And this is still vendor specific how you do it. So in Thorntail you do it with the product defaults where you add whereabouts the roles are defined and where you can find the key and stuff like that. And the issuer has to be this. So this is where you kind of do the configuration of Thorntail to do this. You can also have some of the configuration is actually possible to do here in the MicroProfile config as well. Another thing that you need to remember to configure is in the since I'm propagating this token, and this token is propagated as an authorization header. Let's start this one. And in order to propagate this token, I need to do two things. One thing is I need to use the annotation register client headers. So it's actually given to this REST client and it's being propagated. The other thing I have to do is I have to say which headers I want to propagate. And in my case, I'm only interested in the authorization header. So this is, if you're doing the security, this is easy to forget to add in the configuration, but this is needed in order for it to work. So the location service is getting up and running. And while it's doing that, I'll let's see, get in there and let's call the location service directly and see what happens. So the location service is running on 8484 and its data. Was this hello? Did I change this one? I think I didn't. Let me see. Yeah, this one is still hello. It should have been location, but hello. So if I go there and call it directly, you see that it doesn't return anything other than it's unauthorized. So I need to give it a token in order to be able to call it. The other services are okay to call, but if I then call the conference service, remember from the drawing here, if I use the conference service and call that one, this one will call this as well. And if it hasn't got a token in the request, it too will fail, but it will fail in a different way. So if I go to the 8282 data conference, This one will return you get a unauthorized from the location service, but not from this service. But it doesn't return anything since it couldn't get the information. So if I want to call it with a token, let's first just call the greeting service and see how it behaves. If we go to 81 data hello, the greeting service will now say you have something scheduled Wednesday at 5 p.m. And this something comes from here, something scheduled. So if the call to the config service fails, and it fails because of the JSON Web Token isn't present in the location service, so this one returns 401 to this one, which returns 401 to this one, and the fallback kicks in. So in order to call it all the way, I have to provide a JSON Web Token. And I generated one for us. So let's see if I can go and get this one. 81 data. Sorry. 1 data hello, and I give it an authorization header, authorization colon, and I say bearer, and it's a token I've generated for us. So if I call it with a valid token, it will now return the correct. You have a tech talk on internet Wednesday at 5 p.m. So and if I tamper with this token somehow, return an R rather than a Q, it will. Oh, it shouldn't work there. Why did it work? That was weird. You have something scheduled Wednesday at 5 p.m. So the token has to be correct in order to work. And it says you have a Jakarta tech talk on internet Wednesday at 5 p.m. So what happened there is that I supplied the token to the greeting service, it's propagated to the conference, and then to the location, which is the only service that was actually secured here. But I could have secured all of them, and the token would have been needed everywhere. And with that, that concludes my demo. So my summary is just a couple of links. Microservices.io is where you can look at the microservice patterns I've used here and what the microprofile is kind of built upon. The samples of this code is on my GitHub. Microprofile is best figured out at microprofile.io, and if you're interested in Jakarta EE, go to the Jakarta EE web page. And with that, I'm gonna stop sharing and see if there are any questions or comments. So we have singleton. No, we have a question whether the singleton is mandatory. No, it's not. It can be any CDI scope. Usually I use a request scope, but this is just what the starter generates. So yeah, you can use application scope, request scope, session scope, wherever fits your application needs. But it's usually a request scope. This is the way to go. And we have another question. We can use, if a service has an issue, you can use a circuit breaker. And if that is a part of standard microprofile, yes, it is. It's a part of microprofile, the fault tolerance specification. So you get it there for free without adding anything. And you got the answer in the chat as well. So
there is another question. Ask the questions.
Yeah, I'll look at it. Yeah.
That the code will be available at GitHub afterwards? Or
yes. The code is actually available right now in GitHub. So you just go to my GitHub repo called Duke's Local Greeting, and you'll have everything there. Oh, I'll share that screen actually. Let's see, go. Sure. There you go. This is the GitHub repo where you can find everything.
Okay. So I guess any more questions or comments? If not, I will just remind people that we have another session with Sebastian Daschner scheduled for December 10th. And then with Adam being in sometimes mid-January. So please watch for the Jakarta community calendar and announcements there. Let me see if I can quickly find the link to it, and I will put it in the chat also. But yeah, I would love to see you all, and if you can spread the word and invite people to view the recordings and let us know what they would like to see, that would be fantastic.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the chat to the community calendar. It's a public calendar. We also have the Jakarta update calls published there. I think one is coming up on December 11th as well. So again, I invite you all to dial in, let us know of your thoughts, concerns, desires, and we'll try to address them as best as possible. The times are, let's see what the calendar says, but the times should be in the Eastern time zone. Yes, North America East. Okay, so is Jakarta Big Bang will affect MicroProfile as well? Okay, so well, depends on the specifications, right? So Ivar, do you want to take
Yeah.
that?
So MicroProfile depends on CDI, JSONP, JAX-RS, and JSONB, and all of these will be carried on forward. So whether we choose whether Big Bang or not, they would be affected like a Big Bang. So yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, so I think we're well of the over top of the hour. We'll talk again December 10th on the Tech Talk. Otherwise, I'm hoping to see you in some other Jakarta or MicroProfile related events or calls. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll be in touch. Bye for now.
Yeah. Thank you.